Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep on a topic you specifically requested. It's going to be a deep dive into the world of Jungian psychology. We're going to try to unpack Carl Jung's concept of individuation and the role of archetypes.
That's a great way to put it. It's basically like embarking on a quest to understand, how you become you.
Yeah.
And it's more than just like, simple self-discovery, right?
Right.
It's also about recognizing those universal patterns, those archetypes that influence, well, all of us, really.
Okay, so before we get too deep into all of that, can you remind me, what exactly is individuation?
Oh, sure.
Like, I know it's about becoming your true self, but is it like flipping a switch? Or is it more of a journey? What do you think?
It's definitely more of a journey. Think of it as like an unfolding. Jung saw it as this instinctual drive towards wholeness, but not one that's like pre-programmed or anything. It's about uncovering your unique potential, separate from all those expectations or even those masks that we wear.
So less about fitting in and more about figuring out what your fitting in looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes a lot of sense, but it also sounds a little daunting, honestly.
It can be.
Yeah.
But that's where understanding the stages and the archetypes can really help.
Yeah.
It's like having this guidebook for your inner world.
I like that. Okay, so from the materials that you sent, it seems like archetypes are more than just symbols. They're almost like, like forces.
Yeah, forces is a good word.
How do they actually work within us?
Okay, so think of them as these blueprints for human experience that exist in our collective unconscious. Like, the hero, the shadow, the wise old man.
Yeah.
These are like universal patterns of behavior and ways of being that we all tap into.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here.
Yeah.
So these archetypes, they kind of guide us through different stages of individuation, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And each stage, like you said, has its own, challenges.
Yeah.
And those challenges are often embodied by specific archetypes.
Okay, so for example, what's an example of that?
So in those really early stages, it's all about the persona.
Yeah.
Which is, kind of like that social mask we wear. It helps us function, in society.
Yeah.
But the challenge is avoiding over-identification with it.
Oh. Yeah.
Like if you're always playing this role, you can lose touch with who you are beneath it all.
That makes sense. But doesn't that bring up like the shadow? That stuff we try to hide.
Right.
Even from ourselves.
Yes.
Confronting that sounds really unpleasant.
It can be. Which is why this stage can feel really intense,
Oh, yeah.
The shadow holds all those parts of ourselves that we deem unacceptable, but integrating it is key to wholeness. It's, think of it like this.
Yeah.
You can't fully embrace your light without acknowledging your darkness.
Is that even possible, though?
Oh, it's possible.
I mean, don't we spend, like, our whole lives trying to be the good version of ourselves?
Right. But it's not about becoming bad, right?
Yeah.
It's about accepting those shadow parts and understanding what they actually reveal about ourselves.
Okay.
And it's by integrating these so-called negative aspects that we gain a more complete and authentic sense of self.
You mentioned the hero earlier. And the sources that you sent, they discuss this archetype quite a bit.
Yeah.
Is there a connection between the hero and the shadow?
Absolutely. The hero's journey often involves facing their own shadow self.
Huh. Okay.
Think about like all those classic myths, right?
Yeah.
The hero always confronts, a monster or a dark force or something. That's a symbolic representation of us facing our own inner demons.
Oh, okay. So even without capes and superpowers, we can all kind of be heroes in our own lives.
Exactly. It's about the inner work, the courage to confront those shadow parts and really step into your authentic self.
I like that. Okay, but that's just one stage, right?
Yeah. And often an early one at that.
Okay, so what comes after facing the shadow? Like, what's the next stage?
Things get even more interesting then.
Oh, okay.
We encounter the anima, or the animus.
Okay.
Our inner countergender.
Wait, our inner what?
It's not as strange as it sounds.
Okay.
Basically, what this means is it's about recognizing that we all have both masculine and feminine principles within us.
Ah, okay.
So, like, the anima is the feminine within the male, and the animus is the masculine within the female.
So it's not about literally becoming the opposite gender, but more about integrating those energies that we might have repressed based on, societal expectations.
Precisely. This stage is about going beyond those rigid gender roles.
Yeah.
And embracing a fuller, more authentic sense of self.
That's fascinating. But honestly, it's a little mind-bending. Where do we go from there?
Well, that leads us to the ultimate goal, realizing the self.
So that's where we finally become our true, most whole selves, like the end goal.
Well, it's not really an end point. It's more like, a lifelong aspiration.
Oh, okay.
The self, in Jungian terms, is the archetype of wholeness.
Okay.
Like it's the center of our being. It's where our conscious and unconscious minds meet.
Okay. So how do we connect with this self? Because from the materials that you sent, it sounds pretty abstract.
It is. And Jung actually believed that the self often reveals itself through symbols.
Okay.
Especially in our dreams.
Oh, right. Our sources did mention symbols like the mandala and the hero.
Exactly. So think of the mandala.
Yeah?
That beautifully intricate circular design. It represents psychic totality, that inner harmony and wholeness that the self embodies. And just like looking at one can be a form of meditation.
Oh, wow. So mandalas aren't just pretty pictures. They're like roadmaps to the self.
Yeah, in a way, yes. They offer like a glimpse into the wholeness that we're all striving for.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But besides mandalas, what other symbols are connected to this self? Because I have to admit, this whole concept is a bit, well,
ethereal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do we actually work with these ideas in our daily lives?
That's what we'll explore next.
So you mentioned working with these ideas in our daily lives. And that's where I get a little lost, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how do we move from these kind of abstract concepts to, practical application?
Well, remember the hero's journey we talked about?
Yeah.
That's not just like a storytelling device.
Right.
It's actually a model for how individuation can work.
You mean like those classic stories where the hero faces trials, overcomes obstacles, and like emerges all transformed?
Exactly.
But how does that relate to,
Right.
my life?
Well, think of the dragons you face every day. Like maybe it's that really challenging project at work or like a difficult conversation you've been putting off or even just like breaking a bad habit.
Yeah.
Those are your trials, right?
Okay.
Embracing the hero archetype means finding that courage to confront them, to push beyond your comfort zone and really grow.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
It's not about literal monsters or anything. It's more about that inner strength to face what we fear or avoid.
Exactly.
But you mentioned other symbols too.
Yes.
What about like the tree?
Oh, yeah.
You sent me an article about like its connection to the self.
The tree is a fantastic symbol for individuation.
Okay.
Its roots dig deep down into the unconscious, just like, our own hidden depths. But its branches, right? They reach for the sky, striving for growth and enlightenment.
I love that visual. It's like we need both, to be grounded in who we are, but also reach for our potential. Okay, what about the precious stone symbol?
Yeah.
That one was a little less clear to me.
Ah, yes. So the precious stone represents that spark of the divine within each of us.
Okay.
The self, kind of in its purest form, think of it like a diamond.
Oh, okay.
Formed under immense pressure, but ultimately radiating beauty and light.
I see.
It reminds us that even in the midst of all those challenges, there's this inner strength and brilliance to be found.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these symbols, they could be more than just, symbols, right?
Right.
Like they're these little guides, pointing us towards wholeness.
Exactly.
Okay.
They tap into something universal in, the human psyche.
Yeah.
But how do we actively engage with them?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, Jung believed that dreams are a direct line to our unconscious.
Okay, so it's not just about sleeping. It's about actually like remembering and analyzing those dreams.
Right. So keeping a dream journal can be really helpful. Jot down the images, the emotions, any recurring symbols, that sort of thing. Don't even worry about perfect interpretation.
Right.
Just notice what really stands out to you.
That sounds helpful, but honestly, sometimes my dreams are just weird jumbles.
I hear you.
Any tips for actually deciphering them?
Don't get too hung up on, like, literal meanings, okay? Ask yourself, like, what feelings did the dream evoke? Does any symbol resonate with my, current life situation?
Right.
And sometimes just sitting with the dream and letting it kind of, like, wash over you can bring some insights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Besides dreams, are there other ways to kind of explore these archetypes?
Of course.
Because, not all of us are great dream recallers.
Jung developed this technique called active imagination.
Oh, okay. What is that?
So it's like a guided daydream, where you're consciously interacting with your inner world.
So it's less about controlling the images and more about letting them, unfold.
Yes.
And seeing what arises.
Exactly.
But how do you actually do that?
Yeah. Okay, so you can start by focusing on a specific image, right? A symbol or even like a question you have.
Okay.
Close your eyes, relax, and then imagine yourself entering this landscape or maybe a room.
Okay.
Pay attention to all those little details, the colors, the sounds, any figures that might appear. Talk to them.
Oh, wow.
Ask questions and see where that interaction actually leads.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Oh.
It's less about intellectualizing.
Right.
And more about experiencing these archetypes.
Exactly. Our rational mind can only take us so far.
Right.
Sometimes we need to bypass the intellect and tap into our intuition and imagination.
So from the articles that you sent, it seems like creative expression can help with this too.
Absolutely.
I don't know, painting, writing, even dancing.
All of those.
Really?
Yeah, those can be powerful ways to connect with your unconscious.
Good.
When you create, you're essentially giving form to those inner images and archetypes.
I worry about getting too analytical with this, though, like seeing a hero in every movie or trying to fit myself into a specific archetype box.
Right. And that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
Remember, archetypes are tools for understanding.
Okay.
Not labels.
Got it.
It's less about I am this archetype.
Right.
And more about how is this archetype showing up in my life right now?
Yeah.
What can I learn from it?
Okay. So it's about staying open to these archetypes and how they kind of play out in our lives, but not getting too rigid about it.
Precisely. It's about that interplay, the dance between these universal patterns and our own unique personalities.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Oh, good.
But I have to admit, it's a lot to process.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm
still wondering how all of this translates into real world change.
Right.
How does understanding archetypes and individuation actually impact our everyday lives?
Okay, so imagine you've been navigating life with this blurry, incomplete map. Individuation is like getting a high definition, super detailed map of your inner world.
So it's about seeing things more clearly, understanding our patterns, motivations.
Exactly.
Okay, but how does that help us live better?
Well, for example, understanding the persona can help you become more aware of the masks that you wear in different situations.
Yeah.
You can then choose which ones actually serve you and which ones might be holding you back from authentic expression.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the shadow?
Yeah.
How does acknowledging those darker parts actually make our lives better?
Well, recognizing your shadow patterns can actually help you break free from destructive behaviors.
Oh, okay.
Understand your projections onto others.
Yeah.
And even tap into hidden strengths you might have suppressed.
Can you give me an example?
Sure.
Because that still sounds kind of abstract.
Okay, so let's say you're someone who really struggles with procrastination. Okay. Maybe your shadow manifests as self-sabotage or even a fear of failure. Integrating the shadow means acknowledging those fears.
Okay.
Not judging yourself for them.
Right.
And finding healthier ways to manage them.
So it's not about pretending those parts don't exist.
Yeah.
But about understanding and working with them.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about bringing those unconscious patterns into the light of awareness so they no longer control you.
This is starting to click.
Awesome.
Okay, so how does understanding the animus play into all of this?
Okay, so think about your relationships.
Yeah.
Recognizing your anima or animus can help you see how those masculine and feminine energies play out in your interactions.
Oh, okay.
You can develop greater empathy, communicate more effectively, and form deeper connections.
So it's not just about romantic relationships, but any interaction where those energies are kind of at play.
Absolutely. And remember, individuation isn't like a solo mission. It unfolds in the context of our relationships with other people. As we become more whole ourselves, our relationships transform too.
This is so fascinating.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, it's a bit overwhelming too.
Yeah, it can be.
Is individuation something that happens overnight?
No, no.
Or is it more of like a lifelong process?
Definitely a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
There will be moments of clarity
Mm-hmm.
and moments of confusion.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll feel like you're making great progress,
Yeah.
and other times you might feel stuck.
So how do we navigate those challenging parts?
Yeah.
Are there any specific like tools or practices that can help?
Well, therapy can be really helpful,
Yeah.
especially with a therapist who understands Jungian psychology.
Okay.
They can provide a safe space to explore your inner world
Yeah.
and guide you through the process.
What about those of us who aren't in therapy, though?
Oh, there's still a lot you can do.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Remember all those tools we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Dream journaling, active imagination,
Yeah.
creative expression.
Right.
Those are all powerful practices you can incorporate into your daily life.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
Glad to hear it.
We've covered so much ground,
Yeah.
from the basic concepts of individuation and archetypes
Right.
to their practical implications in our lives.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up,
Yes.
is there a final thought or
Sure.
takeaway you want to leave our listener with?
Yes. Remember that individuation is about becoming who you truly are, not who you think you should be.
I like that.
It's about embracing your unique journey with all its complexities and
Yeah.
challenges. And the beautiful thing is,
Mm-hmm.
the more you strive for individuation,
Yeah.
the more authentic, creative, and fulfilled you become.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
So, to our listener out there,
Mm-hmm.
take a moment to reflect on what resonates most with you from our conversation today. Which archetype speaks to you right now? What part of yourself are you being called to kind of explore?
Good question.
Remember, the journey of self-discovery is an adventure, and there's no right or wrong way to approach it. It's like we've been handed this flashlight,
Yeah.
to explore all these hidden corners of our minds.
Exactly.
But it's up to us to take that first step.
It is, yeah. And remember, this whole thing, this isn't about achieving some perfect state of self.
Right.
It's an ongoing process. It really is. There will be times, where
Yeah.
you feel lost,
Yeah.
confused, even resistant.
Yeah.
That's normal, though.
Yeah.
It's all part of the journey.
So how do we navigate like those rough patches?
Yeah, that's a good question.
The materials that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Like therapists or Jungian analysts.
Right.
But what about those of us who aren't in therapy?
Oh, there's so much you can do on your own.
Okay, good.
We've talked about, dream journaling.
Active imagination,
Right.
creative expression.
Yeah.
Those are all fantastic tools for self-exploration.
Okay.
Even something as simple as like taking a walk in nature
Oh, right.
can really help you connect with your inner world.
When we first started talking about individuation,
Mm-hmm.
it sounded so intimidating.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like almost this huge abstract concept.
Yeah.
But now it feels, I don't know, more relatable, like something we can actually do.
That's the beauty of it. It's not some esoteric philosophy,
Right.
reserved for academics.
Right, yeah.
It's about understanding yourself, your motivations, your patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you understand,
Yeah.
the more empowered you become to make choices that really align with your true self.
So it's not just about self-discovery.
Right.
It's about using that knowledge to, create a more meaningful life.
Exactly. It's about finding your purpose.
Yeah.
Living authentically and
Forming deeper connections with, with others.
I love that. This deep dive has been truly, it's been eye-opening.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Before we wrap up,
Yeah.
is there any final nugget of wisdom
Sure.
you want to leave our listener with?
Oh, definitely.
Something to kind of ponder
Yeah.
as they continue on their own journey of individuation.
I would say this, remember that you are not fixed or defined by any one archetype, okay?
Okay.
These are tools for understanding, not labels.
Right.
Allow yourself to be surprised by what emerges,
Yeah.
as you explore your inner world.
That's beautifully said.
Thank you.
So to our listener out there, we encourage you to, keep reflecting on what we've discussed.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe even revisit some of those materials that you sent us.
Ask yourself, what resonates most strongly with you right now? What aspect of yourself are you curious to explore further? Remember, the journey of self-discovery, it's a lifelong adventure. There's no rush. There's no right or wrong way to approach it. Just keep exploring, keep growing, and keep becoming who you truly are. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.